Mr. O.P. Srivastava, Mr. Ashish Srivastav's father, founded Chemtron Science Laboratories Private Limited. Mr. O.P. Srivastava was a former BARC employee. Mr. O.P.'s visit to the United Kingdom while pursuing a government sponsored PhD program exposed him to the development of gas analyzers. He was astounded to discover that small businesses in the United Kingdom could make such high quality goods. This sparked his curiosity and he thought that he could do the same thing back in India.
So the journey actually began way back. My father was in BRC for 36 years. During his initial years in BRC, he was sent by Government of India to UK to pursue his PhD in some government-to-government aided program. So during his time of PhD, he had to go to a lot of companies where gas chromatographs and gas analyzers were actually getting developed. So these are all small, part-time, not part-time, full-time entrepreneurship companies, not big, any big of them. And he was involved in, he was basically interacting with them during his PhD. And so this thing actually started there when he saw these small companies making all these high technological products.
Mr. O.P. Srivastava pursued the idea during his free time at home because he had contractual duties with BARC. Mr. O.P. created these items at his dining table. He was involved in trials for roughly 4 to 5 years. Mr. O.P. formally began full scale activities in 2000 after retiring from BARC. Mr. O.P. obtained a loan and purchased a 600 square meter plot of land in MIDC, Navi Mumbai.
About 10 years almost 10 years before his retirement, he was denied a very critical promotion. So that is the time when the whole thing started. So he had decided that he will start a company and just started off making equipments and all that. What he studied in the UK, in basically in our dining room, in our basically dining table. So we started off with small things, So he was operating it from home for about 4-5 years. Then he retired in December 2000. And then he started, then we bought this land in MIDC. And this 600 square meter plot was something which he could afford. And he took a loan from the state government, Maharashtra State Finance Corporation, I think.
Mr. Ashish Srivastava was studying engineering during the foundational phase of the business. He would spend a significant amount of time in the plant assisting his father. He used to devote a considerable amount of time to research and development. During that phase, he successfully prototyped and designed a temperature control machine. Many of his classmates moved to the United States and the United Kingdom to pursue their master's degrees after finishing their engineering degrees. But Mr. Ashish Srivastava was completely immersed in his work, assisting his father at the time, and he was ecstatic about the things he was making. Mr. Ashish opted to stay back in India and began working full time at Chemtron.
I made a PCB and I was actually working. So I still remember I made a temperature controller during that time, and we were actually we were making a GC where we had to control temperature, and the circuit kind of worked. So that the high was extremely good. And when I finished my engineering, there was a huge rush of Indian students going to the US to do MS and further studies and all that. I really wanted to go to basically leave the country and go for further studies. But this one instance happened where I made something and it actually worked. So that kind of engrossed me to a level that this innovation, innovation for me, the definition of innovation is to make something by your own bare hands, and seeing it work was something phenomenal. I mean, I could say that my spark of entrepreneurship came from there.
He had an extremely innovative mind and devoted himself entirely to product innovation. Chemtron had won a project from Indian Oil Corporation Mathura. They had to create and supply four numbers of gas chromatograph systems. He worked 16 hours a day for days with his father's ex-colleagues. This was the career turning phase in the early days of his life. Chemtron gradually expanded its product lines to include gas cylinders, engineering and electronics goods, and specialty gas mixtures. Practically, they were the pioneers of the galvanic gas system. Mr. Ashish Srivastava then headed the next stage of diversification, which included the production of gas regulators and gas analyzers. Mr. Ashish Srivastava's father, Mr. O.P. Srivastava, suffered a heart attack in 2009, and his doctors urged him to reduce his activities. He was 67 years old and this was his second attack. Mr. Ashish got more responsibilities, including the commercial side of the company. He was just 28 years old at the time. He began assembling the next level of leadership team. They began implementing processes and steadily progressed to the next stage of growth.
First 10 years of my life, I never used to deal in any commercial activities. I was kind of only focusing on development, focusing on product development, so on and so forth. It's only when my father had this second heart attack in 2009-ish is when I started focusing on commercial, and there is where the growth cycle started to happen, because an aggression of a 26 7 year, I was 27 28 years that time, and my father was 67, so he didn't have the aggression what I had. And the best thing which happened to me is the 6 7 years of experience which I had with working with retired scientists of BRC.
Mr. Ashish Srivastava used a high bank leverage approach to build the business. For Mr. Ashish, servicing the debts was a positive pressure. He didn't fear losing since he was an athlete and he dreamed big.
The best thing about loans is, that is the only thing will make sure that you get up in the morning, because you need to pay that EMI.
What drives him is the belief that money will eventually follow innovation and delivery. Mr. Ashish Srivastava is working towards making Chemtron a rupees 100 crore company by 2025.